Today, in this video, we are going to discuss that the Baltimore Ravens have retained one of their own. Also, we're going to talk about what is left in free agency that can help build up this team for the push to the playoffs. A ridiculous take on Lamar Jackson coming from a homer. All this and more coming up now. So almost coming down to the wire, the Baltimore Ravens have elected to pick up the fifth-year option on Oweh. The fourth-year linebacker was teetering on not having his extension done. It may have been performance-based, it may have been because of injury, but the Ravens decided that he has performed well enough to keep him around. The outside linebacker being drafted in 2021 came into the league as a project. The Baltimore Ravens knew that he was a little unpolished, a little raw, but they saw something in him. It could have been his 6'5" height or his 4'3" 40. Even though he did not have a sack in his last year of college, the Ravens thought that was an outlier and they could mold him into what they wanted. Now, his rookie season, he had 5 sacks. He had the game-clinching fumble versus the Kansas City Chiefs, giving Lamar Jackson his first win and his only win versus Patrick Mahomes. He played in 15 games that season, starting 2. The Ravens thought that they had an ascending player on this roster. And in 2022, Oweh played in 17 games, a full season with 6 starts, but he only accounted for 3 sacks. Now, this may have been Oweh bulking up a little too much because he did look kind of stiff out there on the field, and they just did not get the production that they wanted from him. Knowing that the fifth-year option was coming up this past season, Oweh knew that he needed some kind of breakout performance. Coming into the 2023 season, Oweh knew that he needed a breakout season if he was going to be thought about with the fifth-year option. Oweh had a lot of pressures, but he has dealt with injuries this past season. He played in 13 games, started 5, and ended the season with 5 sacks. After he came back from missing 4 games, Oweh did have a sack in 3 consecutive games, showing the promise that made him a first-round pick. And a lot of us thought, 13 sacks in 3 seasons, is this enough for the Ravens to shell out that kind of money for an option? Apparently so, because they did sign him to that. So Oweh does have, for the 2025 season, a 1-year, $13.3 million contract. Is he worth it? It's hard to say, but the Ravens did know, being that they are thin at edge, they needed to retain someone that they felt could help this team. So this is going to be a breakout season for Oweh. Maybe get a long-term extension because, as always, the Ravens are up against the salary cap and they don't have a lot of money to spread around. So if they can get him to a long-term extension, lowering his salary cap, that is something that the Ravens sorely need. And with the other first-round pick, Rashad Bateman, they did not pick up his option. They signed him to an extension, and unbeknownst to myself and a lot of Ravens fans, Bateman was not even eligible to receive his 5th-year option because he kind of held out before last season, and being that he missed the beginning of training camp, that made him ineligible. So that kind of took one of the decisions off of the table for the Ravens, because to me, might have caused some contention within the locker room if you would have picked up Oweh's option and declined Bateman's. So Bateman and his actions, or the actions of his agent, or what may have been suggested by his agent, took that off the table completely. So the Ravens get at least another 2 seasons to see what Oweh has to offer the team. Hopefully things get better. Hopefully another season under Chuck Smith helps Oweh to drastically improve. Now that the 2024 NFL draft has concluded and the Ravens pretty much have the schematics on what the team is going to look like, there still are some holes that may need to be filled, some competition that needs to be had. So there still are some remaining free agents this late in the game that the Ravens could take a look at to help build this roster to the championship level. Now, to me, some of the free agents I think the Ravens should look at may not be popular ones, but they could be necessities. First one that I'm going to talk about is Ryan Tannehill, former quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, former quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Now, to a lot of people, Tannehill is not what many would consider a winner and possibly on the downside of his career. But you have to think that we're not looking for him to come in and be a starter. We may need him to come in and do spot duty, maybe play a game or 2. While he may not be on that prototypical level of a lot of other QBs in the game, to me, he is 10 times better than Tyler Huntley. So I think if the Ravens were in a pinch and they needed him to come in to win, he could do just that. Listen, the 12 12-year veteran has almost 35,000 yards passing in the NFL. It's a lot of yards. So he has proven to be a winner. He also has 216 passing touchdowns in the NFL. So like I said, don't need him to be a starter. We need him to come in and possibly win a game or two late in the season or if something happens. Now, as of right now, Josh Johnson is the backup. Think that Tannehill is a little bit better than him, and being it's this late in the game, he's not going to be that expensive. And we would only possibly need him for a year, maybe two, until the Ravens develop someone else. The next free agent that I think the Ravens should look at is Tyler Boyd. Now, to some, they think that this wide receiver room is set, especially with the Ravens drafting Tez Walker. But for me, competition is paramount. The best players will play. And the more competition you bring in, the more guys will try, the better your roster can be. You don't have to depend on certain people. You have a myriad of options to choose from. And to me, Tyler Boyd, he used to be a number one receiver. So he knows what it takes in crunch time situations to win the game. He knows what it takes to demand the ball and get it and make plays. Now, albeit last season may have been a down year for him in Cincinnati, he is a two-time former 1,000-yard receiver. Now, his numbers may not jump off the board at you, but you have to realize he was the third option in the Bengals offense. You had Jamar Chase and you had T. Higgins, and he still put up decent numbers comparable to the second and third wide receivers that the Baltimore Ravens had. Now, I know we have Bateman, we have Aguilar. They brought Tez into the mix. You still have Tylan Wallace. I understand that. But this is a guy that you can bring in that is dependable and still has something left in the tank because he was not overutilized in the Bengals system these past few seasons. And once again, he's not going to cost a lot of money, and he makes your wide receiver room better. And the last two free agents that I'm going to talk about are guards, something that I think that the Ravens sorely need because we just don't know. That left guard and that right guard spot is up in the air. We may have the potential successors on the roster right now, so why not bring in some proven veterans that you know can play and possibly make this team better? So the two guards that I think that the Ravens should bring in are Andrews Pete, formerly of the New Orleans Saints. He is a versatile offensive lineman. He can play tackle, but his best position is guard. So we can come into man one of the guard spots. And also I think that the Ravens, and I've been saying this for the past few seasons, should bring in Dalton Risner. Now, I know a lot of people are high on Ben Cleveland, Josh Jones, and especially Andrew Voorhees, but we don't know what production we're going to get out of those guys. You can bring in cheap veterans on a 1, maybe 2-year deal and move forward from there. This way, especially if you are an Andrews Voorhees fan, you can see what he has and develop him and not just throw him out after an injury and pray that he does well. And I will admit that Ben Cleveland has made progress since he's been on the field, but what happens if he plays well? Are the Ravens going to resign him, or are they going to let him walk? Revisionist history tells me that if he plays well, or if he plays really well, he's going to price himself out of Baltimore and then he's going to walk. So why not sign one of these free agent guards to a 2-year deal, let them do their thing, and then let one of the younger guys come in and play? And also, you can continue your plan from last year in rotating the pieces to get these younger guys a little game time experience. And this mitigates what the Ravens didn't do at guard during the NFL draft. So why not do it? What would it hurt? I know the Ravens are strapped for cash right now, but these guys are not going to cost you a lot of money. Now, if you are ready for some comedy, we're going to take a look at Nick Wright, and he reveals his QB mountain, or what he has dubbed Mahomes Mountain, because he is a native of Kansas City. He's a stout Kansas City fan, and he screams it to the mountaintops, and he predominantly puts Patrick Mahomes on top of his QB mountain each and every week that he does this. But it is hilarious to me, and he's been saying this all off season, that he has put Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 draft, on the same tier as a 2-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. And when we listen to this take, he's going to give his reasons or his excuses. I don't know. He's just shoveling some BS. I understand that Chicago has surrounded Caleb Williams with a ton of weapons to make him successful in the NFL, but just like I say about Voorhees, he's never played a down in the NFL, so we don't know what he's going to look like. And to have Lamar Jackson on the same level as a Matthew Stafford, a Justin Herbert, it blows my mind. Now, Matthew Stafford has done a lot in the NFL. He's passed for a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards, but he has had offensive weapons that accentuates what he does as a quarterback. And Justin Herbert, yes, a lot of passing yards, a lot of touchdowns, but no winning. Blew a 27-point lead in his only playoff game. and this is the knock that they have on Lamar Jackson, is his playoff success. Well, Justin Herbert really doesn't even make it to the playoffs, and the one time that he did, he failed in royal fashion. So how you put Lamar on the same tier as them? Don't get it. You put Burrow, Josh Allen, and CJ Stroud in a tier above him. Understandably, Josh Allen's been to an AFC championship, so has Lamar. Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl. Give him that. CJ Stroud came into the NFL and lit the world afire. But to put Lamar Jackson on a tier beneath these guys when he has theoretically accomplished more on an individual basis than the quarterbacks ahead of him is ludicrous to me. And then for you to have nobody on the second level, it's crazy. But enough about that. Listen to their takes.
I think Justin Herbert and Matt Stafford actually have a lot of similarity. The winning didn't come for Stafford until he left Detroit. It has not yet come for Herbert, but you know how good of a player they are. Lamar, two-time MVP, the playoff struggles notwithstanding. And then there is Caleb Williams, who I believe will be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league the moment he sets foot in the league. And unlike the other rookie quarterbacks outside of maybe JJ, is set up wonderfully with weapons, offensive line, potentially a good defense. Third row, I feel badly for these guys because these guys don't deserve to live in a world where none of them will ever be able to say they were the best quarterback alive. Of course, there's no one on the next row because nobody deserves to be within spitting distance of the namesake of the mountain. There he is. It goes without saying. Your thoughts on post-draft Mahomes Mountain?
Well, I'm a little iffy on the criteria. But my main thing is Lamar. Lamar should be moved up to the next level because which one of those guys, Burrow, Stroud, Allen, has an MVP? I'll wait, let alone two. Burrow's been further than Lamar. Burrow, a A-list receiver, right, for the bulk of his career. Allen, A-list receiver for the bulk of his career. Not yet Stroud, but he will this year. Lamar has never had an A-list receiver.
It's not for lack of trying. They've
really?
They've spent more
OBJ was old. We knew he wasn't A-list.
As far as draft capital, they've spent more on the receivers than
Bateman can't stay healthy. Hollywood wanted out, and he's not A-list anyway. All right? And Zay, we'll see. Right? We'll see. I like Zay. We'll see. And I think having Derrick Henry there is going to just open things up even more.
Do you have a specific guy you'd move down? Because I don't think he's better than any of those three guys. That's the problem. The problem is, I understand that CJ hasn't shown a lot. You know, he just has the 1 year. Yeah. I think those three quarterbacks are better than Lamar. And I'm not trying to be, like, again, it's not left to right, so Lamar might be as high as fifth.
What I tell you, crazy talk. But I think this being Lamar's second year in Todd Monken's system and the Ravens putting a little bit more around him, Zay Flowers coming into his own in his second season, because receivers normally make the biggest jump in year two. Lamar is going to prove why he deserves to be on that top tier with Patrick Mahomes. Next up, we are going to talk about the winners and the losers on the Baltimore Ravens rosters as it pertains to what the Baltimore Ravens did in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, these are some guys that won from what the Ravens did not do and some guys that lost because their eventual replacements may have been brought into the team. Now, for me, we're going to start off with the winners. Now, some of the winners to me are going to be the guys on the offensive line that are in competition for the two guard spots. Andrew Voorhees, Ben Cleveland, Josh Jones, and Saleh, by the Ravens not drafting an offensive lineman and offensive guard until the 7th round, where they drafted an injured rookie who may not be ready for play. This leaves things wide open for these four gentlemen to compete for this spot. Not bringing in somebody proven, not drafting somebody a little bit higher, it leaves the door wide open to take over two of these starting spots. So to me, these guys win by default. The Ravens see something in these men that led them to believe they did not need to bring in the competition because there are four guys vying for two spots. Another winner to me is going to be David Ojabo. The Ravens only drafted one edge player when they brought in Isaac, someone who can come in and be a rotational player, maybe move his way up to the roster, but by them not bringing in multiple edges, that shows a vote of confidence and possibly have a very productive season. The off-injured outside linebacker has a chance to prove why the Ravens drafted him in the 2nd round. Next up is going to be our Darius Washington. Now, the Ravens did draft a safety with their very last pick. Not really expected to come in and make the roster. If he does, possibly practice squad, maybe some special teams work. So this gives our Darius Washington the inside track on that third safety position. Now, they sometimes use him at nickel corner, but the lack of competition pretty much outside of injury guarantees him a roster spot. Now, looking into the losers coming from the NFL draft, I think it's already known.
It is known.
Is known.
we have to start off, and these two come as a pair, Jalen Armour-Davis and Pepe Williams. The two fourth-round corners have essentially done nothing since they've entered the NFL. They've both been off injured. Once Jalen Armour-Davis actually came in and played a few games, it was notably on special teams. A lot of people didn't even realize he was on the field. And with the Ravens drafting Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa, this essentially assures at least one of those guys will not be on the 53-man roster come opening day. Next up is Daniel Fa'alele. Thought by some to have path right to that right tackle spot. Not a lot of us are really happy with that, especially with what Coach Evans calls him molasses feet, brick feet. With all the potential that he had, we don't think that he's ready to man that position. We don't think that he is a good option. And with the Ravens drafting Rosengarten, he, for all intents and purposes, may right now on the depth chart be penciled in as the starting right tackle. Now, that doesn't mean that Fa'alele can't practice, get better, hone his craft, and maybe take that position one day or be a rotational piece. But right now, he is just not ready to start. He has not shown anything on the field so far that proves he is ready. Poor Malik Cunningham. The NFL really doesn't know what to do with him. He is a quarterback / wide receiver that is trying to find his niche in the NFL. The New England Patriots drafted him, tried to use him at other positions. The Ravens are doing the same. But with the Ravens bringing in Taz Walker, it kind of eliminates a spot for him unless the next person on this list slips up and does not make the team. And that last person is going to be Tylan Wallace. Yes, Tylan Wallace had that miraculous punt return to win the game for the Ravens last season, but essentially throughout his career, offensively, he has done nada. Zip, zilch, Nathan, nothing. But he does play special teams, and we know that John Harbaugh loves a player that can play on special teams. So one of the last roster spots may come down to Malik Cunningham or Tylan Wallace. And then if the Ravens in this last wave of free agency or after June 1st cuts brings in another wide receiver, possibly both of these guys are going to be gonzo. Done. Need day. Finished. It's a wrap. And speaking of wide receivers being released, the Jacksonville Jaguars have released Zay Jones. Yes, that Zay Jones that Baltimore Ravens fans remember. He was out there cooking us. But to that, I'm going to say no. Don't do it. I know when a player gets released, most Ravens flock is like, yo, go get that guy. Every single time. Oh, he's going to make this team better. Zay Jones is not it. Let's let that go. And finally, we're going to talk about the beginning of next season. So, of course, the defending Super Bowl champions start off the season on Thursday night. They're trying to figure out which game to put in that slot. Seeing a lot of choices, a lot of selections that people would like to be the first game. But what game would live up to the hype? What better game start the season off with other than the AFC Championship rematch between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs? In the AFC, this is how we ended the season last year, so why not start the season off the same way? Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. First game of the season head-to-head to begin the run for AFC supremacy. And to me, there is no other game that you can start the season off with other than this one. So if you can, everyone, let's send a letter to the NFL, scream it to the masses, post it, tweet it, make videos about it. This should be the game to start the season off. What better way to kick things off than with this game, the only game in town, to start off the season on the Baltimore Ravens run to a Super Bowl title. All right, that's it for another video. Appreciate you all once again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell so you are notified when new videos come out. This was a bit of a long one. We actually had some news to talk about. There's a lot of things going on right now. But until the next time, it's your boy, and I'm done.